3, 4, 5. Let us sing. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul. And Lord, haste the day when the face shall be sight, the clouds be rolled back as a scroll, the trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend. Even so, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul.
And we do pray this morning that it is well with each of our souls, because I need for yours to be right, and you need for mine to be right as well, so we can help each other. Today is the final day to bring forth information on the three men that Skyline had nominated for deacons: Chaz Goff, John Adam Goff, and Jake Johns. If no scriptural objections are found regarding these men by this afternoon at the close of our service, Lord willing, these three men will be installed as elders next Sunday morning. So we look forward to our congregation being able to install elders, and we give God the praise, honor, and glory for that. The first television set that I can remember my parents owning was about half the size of a refrigerator. All right, it's cut in half, and it was this huge box, basically. We got two channels, and it was fuzzy most of the time, and it was rolling. We had an antenna outside, and if we wanted to change from one channel to the other, it took three of us to do that. Okay, somebody stood in front of the TV, somebody stood at the front door, and I stood out there twisting that antenna till one of the brothers said, whoa, that's it, no, too far. We have to go back, and then we have to go back, and then, okay, that's it, you know. And so when the picture cleared up, we knew we had the antenna pointed in the right direction, because depending on the weather, we didn't know where the signal was going to be coming from. And so I remember us trying to get that picture zeroed in to watch this one movie that we watched every year, and it came on once a year. But that movie scared me to death. Y'all gonna laugh at this, okay? But that movie was The Wizard of Oz. All right. Now I know all of y'all seen it a million times, and I know all the kids have seen it all these times. But I want to tell you something too, though. If you haven't seen The Wizard of Oz in black and white, you don't know what you're missing. All right. But anyway, that tornado, you know, and the great powerful Wizard of Oz, and the wicked witch, and that chin, and the voice that she had, you know, and those flying monkeys, you know. I mean, they just scared me to death. Matter of fact, I would always want to sleep with my brother that night. You know, I didn't want to sleep by myself. But we all know that story, you know, about Dorothy, who becomes dissatisfied there with her life in Kansas, and she wants to run away, etc. And this tornado comes along, sweeps up the house, and deposits Dorothy over in Munchkin Land. And the house just happens to hit the wicked witch of the East, I think. And in doing that, those magic shoes that the witch has now belongs to Dorothy. But Dorothy wants to get home, and so she is told that she's got to travel this yellow brick road, you know, to the great Wizard of Oz to be able to get him to send her back home. Along that path, she meets that Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Lion. All three want to help Dorothy, but their advice is not very helpful. But Dorothy goes through these trials and everything, but she gets a broomstick that she's told she's going to need, and she carries that back to the great Oz. And she confronts Oz with that broomstick. And Oz has to try to get himself out of that predicament and say, well, you know, he really can't do that, get her back. And while he's doing that, if you'll remember, Dorothy's dog, old Toto, runs over there, gets that curtain and kind of pulls it back. And there the great Oz is there maneuvering and turning all of these contraption things to make this great, powerful Oz who he is. Disappointment sets in, all right, when Dorothy learns that Oz is just a man. Just a man with no special powers and totally and completely incapable of helping her. A little bit later, Glinda, the good witch, tells Dorothy, well, you've always had the power to go home. Just click your heels together. So Dorothy did just that. She clicked her heels together, saying, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. And that transports her back to Kansas. Now, just as Dorothy gets dissatisfied with Kansas, many Americans and too many Christians within the church have become dissatisfied with their lives for one reason or another. You know, and it's really ironic, I guess. You know, we live in the richest and greatest nation that's ever existed. We've got every modern convenience. We've got medical facilities that'll help heal any sickness. We've got educational institutions where you can get any type degree that you'd like, and as many degrees as you'd like. Job opportunities abound for those who want to find a job, yet there are many individuals who have traveled their own yellow brick road and then end up depressed, unhappy, misguided, and they seem to think and say sometimes, you know, I just don't want to live. Life's not worth living. These individuals usually find their own path, all right, to what they believe will bring forth things that would solve their unhappiness. They want to cure their unhappiness. And so they set upon a road to try to do that. Unfortunately, many times, this road leads to drugs, violence, prostitution, and even suicide. You know, if an individual can't find happiness can't find fulfillment, can't find meaning to their life right here in the United States of America, where in the world will they be able to find that? They can't find it where we are. Now, I'm not a psychologist, and I certainly don't have all the answers, but I do have some thoughts this morning. Now, our Wednesday night class has been viewing that presentation, The Silencing of God in America by Dr. Miller. And Dr. Miller has given us reams and reams of proof of the beliefs, the thinking, and the thoughts of our founding fathers in regards to the God of the Bible and Jesus Christ and Christianity. This nation, without a doubt, was founded upon God and Christian values by godly men. These men led their own families and without a doubt established within their own families for them to have a love and respect for God and the Bible. And really they demanded a godly orientation with an emphasis to what's called the Christian religion. They expected church attendance, if you'll remember. And they expected high moral and ethical values. And this belief that our founding fathers within this country were riddled with humanist and deist, that is utterly false. And I'm hoping you're getting that out of the lessons on Wednesday night. However, between 1776 and the 1950s or so, over time, as we know, things do change. A recent Barna Group poll that I saw recently reported that 51% of Americans believe that church attendance is not important. 51%. That's over half of America don't believe church attendance is important. And the poll found that the younger we are, the worse it gets. Only 2 in 10 adults under the age of 30 believe that religion and church is important. So that means that 80% of the millennials and Generation Z have decided that established religion and the church are not important. Therefore, that yellow brick road being traveled by the vast majority of those two generations coming up excludes the church. I shudder to think what this says about the future. I shudder to think what this says about a society for the future. This same study, though, found that overall church attendance in the last several years, from 2004 to 2014, fell from 43% to 36%, and they expect the drop to continue. So if it drops at this rate, in 2024, we will drop to 29% church attendance. 2034, 20%. 2044, 11%. 2054, churches as we know them will cease to exist. At that point, within the United States of America, we may have a churchless society. Now, think about what this says. That means the current class of our 4 to 5 year olds, who do we have in there? Ann Hayden, Jesse Kate Carter, or maybe a couple of other youngsters there. But when these young people of ours reach their 40s, in America there will be basically nobody going to church, quote unquote, as we know it. Now think about that for a second. What our young people's future will be if we don't do something about it. And that's the goal, getting rid of religion and church and everything. That's the goal of those who are promoting and pursuing the ideas of being challenged by Dr. Miller in The Silencing of God in America. Of course, we want to reverse that trend. And really, none of this should surprise us, because all we would have to do is watch society over the years. Every age has its own personality. Our great-grandfather's generation, the lost generation it's called, was shaped by World War I and the Depression. All right, their values stemmed from there, and it established strong family values with them and faith values in that particular generation. Our grandfather's generation, the greatest generation, was shaped by World War II, as these individuals risked their lives for the country and the flag and the institutions that they fought for. My generation, the baby boomers, been shaped by Vietnam, Woodstock, Watergate, and that generation opted to challenge authority, all right, while chasing material prosperity. The next generation, my son's generation, the millennials, have been shaped by academic postmodernism with its denial of fixed truth, all right, and objective ethics. This group usually rejects absolutes, and that's when the problem is beginning to start, you see, because the Bible in their mind will be an absolute, all right, and it will be an authority. And so they reject absolutes, and they prize tolerance of all, everyone. Again, see, that will start to cause a problem. They cite the church's pending irrelevance, all right, and hypocrisy of church leaders and the moral failures of church leaders as the reasons for their belief. And then we have the Generation Z. And you can see them on the nightly news, marching down the street, throwing things through windows. This generation rejects all authority, no matter what it is. No matter what it is. And they cling to personal violence against those who do not agree with them. They believe each individual having the right to establish their own authority. All right? Own authority. And I can see where this will run afoul, you see, with the Bible, with those two generations. Now, an easy example of this, and you will have noticed it, with these older Americans in these communities flying their flags, okay, out on their homes and in their subdivisions and stuff. Well, more and more you see this is becoming a problem because the millennials and other generational groups, all right, most of them are the ones in charge of the city councils and code enforcement and all of that. Well, see, they see a big problem with that because they don't like this flag messing up, quote unquote, their neighborhood. They have no loyal allegiance or anything to that flag. So we've got the greatest generation over here who holds the flag and the country in high regard. Then you've got another generation of Americans here who really don't. So therein you've got a clash. And you see, this is the same thing we have, the problem with evangelism and the problem with going out and attempting to spread the word, because we've got a clash in ideals. We've got generations of people with different mindsets. And we have to try to learn how to deal with these, because these people have their own feelings, their own desires, their set of values, and their own understanding. And they're all traveling down this yellow brick road, chasing what they believe to be right and proper in their eyes. And every year that goes by, more and more of these people are trying to decide for themselves. And therein lies the biggest problems. They're trying to decide for themselves the answers to life and the answers to the hereafter themselves. using their own reasoning. And if they have any trouble with trying to figure this out, you know, you've got the scarecrows, and you've got the Tin Man, and you've got the lions along the way who will be glad to help them. Glad to help them. But if you'll remember, that old dim-witted scarecrow, he didn't help too much, did he? Or that rusty old Tin Man, you know, couldn't do anything either. And that cowardly lion, when the chips were down, he really didn't help. And in the end, all of this information will turn out to be nothing more than lies. Nothing more than lies. Untruths, misdirections from all of these people. And when Toto pulls back that curtain, they will see that it's nothing more than mortal men giving these directions to them. Somehow, and I don't have all the answers, folks. We've got to put our brains together to come up with this. Somehow we're going to have to do better of getting the message out, trying to understand these different generational individuals. Because if we attempt to fight against these brick walls, we're going to continue to just sit still, so to speak. We've got to find a way to penetrate these different generations. We know what God says about these. Acts 5:29. Remember what Peter said when he was given orders to quit proclaiming Jesus. He said, "Hey, I can't do that. We must obey God rather than man." Well, see, just that one sentence sets a whole generation off. What? There's never just one way, you see. So we've got to find a way to get through that. And Jeremiah 10:23. "O Lord, I know the way of man is not in himself to direct his own footsteps." We who believe in the Bible, believe in God, believe in Jesus, believe in the church, hold it up. We believe based on faith that that's true. But see, there's generations of people out there who have a problem with that authority. Proverbs 14:12 and really 16:25, two different verses there say the same thing. "There is a way that seems right to a man, but the end thereof is the way of death." Proverbs 14:12 and 16:25 both say basically the same thing. We understand that. We believe that. Somehow we've got to crack the exterior of society with God's word. There is some good news out there. A Pew Research poll conducted in April of this year found that while there is a rejection of the church and organized religion, would you believe that 80% of Americans believe in God? Believe in God, 80%. Quite frankly, I was excited about that because I thought our nation had gone to pot and we didn't have hardly anybody who believed in God anymore. So there's a large base of people out there who believe in God. They just don't believe that the church and Jesus are important. So, how do we combat these problems? Again, I don't have all the answers, and I don't know. But this is the problem that we've got to try to face, okay, in the future. Now, if you remembered Wednesday night, Dr. Miller's pointed out a couple of things. One of the things he pointed out was we first must become students of fervent prayer. Fervent prayer. And we know James 5:16, the effectual prayer of a righteous man availeth much. We know that. And we have to go to God in prayer for him to help us do and overcome these things that beset us. 1 John 3:21, beloved, if our heart does not condemn us, we have confidence before God, and whatever we ask, we receive from him, because we keep his commandments. I don't think we pray enough. I know I'm in a prayerful mood during the day, and a lot of short prayers are uttered during the day, and a lot of thank yous and everything. But I'm going to be honest with you, as far as long, extended periods of time in prayer, I fall short of that, and I need to do better in that regards, particularly with the problems that I'd like to bring before God. So maybe you need to do a little change there too. I don't know, but we need to pray. We need to pray. Dr. Miller also pointed out, and I concur, that we should become active within the political process. What he's talking about there is support and elect honorable people. And it may be hard out there to find one, that's honorable. But he said we need to do that. Don't ask all of these questions about, what do you think the economy's doing, this, that. Two questions to our politicians. Do you support abortion? Do you support homosexuality? Those are the only two questions you need to know. If you get the right answer, okay, I'll consider supporting you. If you don't get the right answer, I'm sorry, you are writing you off right quick. And get those two issues right, and everything else we'll start from there. But if you don't get those two issues right, then you're wrong to begin with. And also, we've got to get and keep our own lives in order. In order for God to hear our prayers, we've got to keep our own lives in order. I could go through a lot of stuff there, but I really don't have time to do that. We must not lose our love for Christ. I was going to talk about the church there in Ephesus. The whole book of Ephesus there to the Ephesians was written by Paul to try to inspire the Ephesians to do better. He compliments them there on some of the work they're doing, but basically says, you've got to really find a way to love Christ more deeply. You've got to do that. Now, that was written about 60 A.D. We jump over to Revelations, we'll see John writing to the church in Ephesus. And John says, I've got one thing against you. You've done a lot of good things, okay, but I got one thing against you. You've left your first love. Now, Paul talked about this 30 years earlier. And John said, you've left your first love. So exactly what Paul said might happen, happened. All right. And John tells the Ephesians there to find that love again. I don't want us to lose our love for Christ. I don't want us to lose our love for each other and the enthusiasm we have for each other. We can't allow anything to come between us and our love for each other, God, Jesus, and the church. We have to hold up Jesus, hold up God, hold up the church to others. And in doing so, we've got to keep our lives clean, pure, and holy. And lastly, we've got to take advantage of every opportunity that presents itself to extol the hope we have in Jesus Christ. Remember, most Americans believe in God. They just discount Jesus. And that hurts me. I'll be honest with you. And it shouldn't come as a surprise, because I've shared with you, even within the church, there's churches who's removing the name of Christ from the name. So, that's a reflection of a rejection of Christ right there. And if so-called Christians would reject Christ in that manner, it shouldn't surprise me that the rest of the society will do that. Evidently, we're going to have to start over teaching Jesus to others. If you'll remember King Herod there in Luke 9:9, he asked, "Who is this man? Who is this man, Jesus?" And when Jesus came into Jerusalem in Matthew 21:10, the crowd was stirred up, and they basically asked, "Who is this man?" Even his own disciples, remember, Mark 4, Luke 8, Matthew 8, they ask, "Who is this man that the wind and the waves even obey him?" Who is this man? We have to do a better job of indoctrinating ourselves as to who this man is, and teaching our children and each other. And then we have to get the message out as to who Jesus is. John 14:6 tells us Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to the Father except through Jesus, and that's who this man is. God tells us to listen to his Son. And you see, that's the yellow brick road that we follow. Will be those commands that Jesus gives us. Those commands that Jesus informs us to do, so that he will see how much we love him. And Jesus tells us to go into the whole world baptizing in the name of the Father and of the Son and the Holy Spirit. And we're informed in 1 Peter 3:21 that baptism saves. Jesus said, do it. The only way we're going to get to heaven is through Jesus. The only way we're going to get to God is through Jesus. The only way we're going to get there is in obedience to his commands. Therefore, if you have not been baptized, think about that. Jesus said it. And that should end it right there, all discussion. He said it, and that's enough. We can assist you in being baptized this morning. If you have not, or if you have been baptized and have kind of gotten off that yellow brick road to heaven, we can help you get back on by asking God to forgive you of those sins. For any reason we can help you this morning, come forward now while we stand.